therapeutic artist and educator. She spent over 20 years as a designer in technology, and now she has founded the Golden Repair, where she is creating spaces for art as a form of healing and self-discovery. Luz teaches painting, printmaking, and embroidery for both kids and adults. And she works out of her artist sanctuary studio, Mercia. Luz was part of the original CMC volunteer crew for several years. So she's been around and a familiar face to many of you. Thank you so much for joining us, Luz. I'm really looking forward to this. Let's give Luz a warm welcome.
Thank you, Lee. All right, and also, can I get someone from Indigo Slate to maybe turn this? Because while the front of my hair looks great, I'm not sure that they really want to stare at the back of my head during this. And then maybe we can also get a little eye contact time in as well. So I am tangled up in the mic, so now we're starting off with a little authenticity to get things going. So today we're going to talk about patterns of being and belonging, and I do want to say one more shout out to our volunteers. David Conrad, who is our OG, right back there, host for Creative Mornings. And back in the day, it was me and David running social media, finding speakers, and now there is a magical team making all of this happen for you. And a lot of this happens, thank you. It's all good. Now we're gonna get super close. It's all good. And there we go. Okay, now we're locked in. Hi, online. These folks spend a good chunk of their week, their month, to make sure that you have an incredible event here. So if we could give them just a round of applause one more time. This is important work. Thank you for the work that you're doing here. I just love seeing that huge slide of faces. That is a really special thing. So when you get invited to speak, you always have like a nice little intro, and it's, with your accomplishments and your accolades. Like, she worked 20 years in design, and she likes to help people, and she worked in a microwave that you can talk to. Stuff to establish that I'm some sort of expert on things. But those credentials don't really matter much for today. The reality is we are all here existentially today, this moment, because we've been through some hard shit. And it's okay to swear today here, right? Okay, great, swear positive space. So we've been through some real hard shit, and we're coming in today, especially today, with lots on our minds and souls. Probably got achy bodies from all the tension and overwork that we've been holding. When I introduce myself as a therapeutic artist, I get a little bit nervous still because it's a title that I gave myself. My friends kept calling me an art therapist, which actually makes me even more nervous because I have no business. I have no credentials to be able to diagnose or treat anybody clinically. And while those titles do overlap, what I'm trying to do is a little bit different. I'm trying to make space to listen to people, to show people that they have beautiful doors that they can open up and discover these beautiful rooms that they didn't know that they had inside. Some circles will call this work companioning, like I'm your art buddy, but people don't really Google companioning to find this, or they do, and this is not what they're looking for. So let's talk about my real life credentials instead. So I'm a therapeutic artist and educator, and a cycle breaker of generational trauma. I've survived many, many difficult things. I grew up in a chaotic home with many mental health crises and substance abuse. Like we said, my past life was a user experience designer in a toxic tech industry. I've been in therapy for a quarter of my life. I lost my daughter last year at 36 weeks, and I had a miscarriage last month. I'm the wife of a cancer survivor, and grief, depression, and anxiety are my companions. So here's my credentials. But these credentials give me something to say that only someone familiar with grief can say to you, which is, you will get through this. From the shadowed history, grief has been a surprisingly generous teacher. It's taught me how to hold space for wounded souls, how to treat heartache with embodied art, how to embrace joy and grief at the same time while doodling. Right now, we're in a culture that is fragmenting and polarizing us more and more. Your body goes here, Your spirituality goes somewhere over there. We have work-life separation, don't cross the streams, our values from our work, our respectability from our politics, your lovability only from those who live and love like you do, and look like you. And all of this mess, you gotta figure it out on your own, because we certainly can't trust them to take care of it for us, much less do it with us. And it's really no wonder that we are a lonely and anxious people. So in case no one's told you recently, you are a whole integrated being, lovable just for being you, and the whole mess of life that you bring with you. I started Golden Repair to help people reintegrate all these fragmented parts. The name comes from the practice of kintsugi, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a Japanese technique of repairing pottery in which you highlight the broken seams with gold. So I'm learning this right now. This is a teacup that belonged to my great-great-grandmother. As you can see, I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm learning. One of the things that I love about this process is that in order to repair it, you have to hold the pieces in place. You physically hold the brokenness in order to begin the healing. My friend Fiona McGuigan likes to say, art does something magical to our brains. It helps us to slow down, gives us space to listen to our hearts cry, pay attention to those patterns that we are connected to or disconnected from. It's deep work that's done a little bit in solitude, but it's actually done mostly in community. So as I was thinking about this theme of pattern, the first thing that comes to mind is rhythms and repetitions. They asked me what my favorite song was, and I chose Soul Coughing Super Bon Bon because it has a super fat bass line that I know exactly as it starts. That rhythm and repetition is that feeling of knowing you're close to home because of that one turn on your bus route home. Rhythm and repetition is waking up and looking at your phone first thing in the morning. Let's be honest, I did it too. But this is how our brain creates a sense of familiarity, and that familiarity creates safety, right? It can make learning something new feel terrifying, even if it's good for you. And it can mask the need to change because we're humans. We baseline safety and familiarity over health, over growth. I also think of the visual metaphor of pattern. Many little pieces that are intertwined to make up a whole. Each are good on their own, but they become meaningful and powerful in a context. And conversely, the big picture isn't interesting unless it has lots of diverse parts. So independence and interdependence are both important, knowing who we are and who we belong to. Really, we practice self-care in order to practice neighbor care. Our community nourishes us, helps us see how we can be more loving, present, restful. It's how we learn to be better friends, better lovers, protectors, stewards. Right now, it's easy to forget that we belong to each other. So what does this look like? A significant pattern for me as a therapeutic artist is this pattern of retreating, receiving, and reciprocating. So believe it or not, I am an introvert. I'm gonna go home and not talk to anybody for a couple of hours after this. I need solitude to nourish my creative and mental health. And here's a couple of things that I retreat into creatively. And I have sketchbooks out here too as well to demonstrate. You feel free to come up and paw through. These are the ones I feel safe sharing with you all. But a big part of my practice has been swatching and mixing watercolors. And this actually ended up helping me leave the tech industry. It anchored me when my dad died and reintroduced the joy of doing something just for the sake of doing it, that was okay. Embroidery has been a big part of my process right now. It helped me reconnect to my Mexican heritage. I did not embroider my dress, but it makes me feel connected to that. But embroidery also helped me return to my body to help process that white-hot anger when my daughter Beatrix died. I love to make paints from pigments foraged around the world because it connects me to a practice of our ancestors who make marks from the places that they're from. It reminds me that I'm a citizen of the world and of this particular moment in time and of all time at the same time. I do a lot of abstract sketching and painting and collaging, and this is to give my mind space when I don't have the words to speak or I'm feeling overwhelmed, which is a lot of the time, if you can't tell. And especially because grief is such a big part of my story, I invest a lot of my time in the vulnerable work of receiving help from my community. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are not artistic exercises, but they inform my creative practice heavily. So I go to therapy. I have mentors who gently guide me into maturity and health, who are teaching me how to hold my pain with love and grace. It's why I cultivate diverse friendships who value vulnerability, honesty, who we bring the best out in each other. My husband and I practice Sabbath. We take a day off a week to do nothing but rest and delight. I go to somatic movement classes to remind me that my soft body is that of a grieving mother, and it's made for dancing and pleasure. I go to a little Anglican church where we confess to each other that we have not loved well in what we have done and not done, and where we learn to re-enchant our hope that everything fucked will someday be unfucked. And from this collaboratively filled well, I can reciprocate and give back to my students. So this is a photo of my studio, Studio Mercia. This is where I create space. This is my studio. I also teach at a elementary school in West Seattle. So this year I taught my elementary students how to sew, to help develop their screen-focused hand motions, give them a little bit more diversity of movement. Learning to thread needles, the rhythm of making stitches, how to tangibly compose and experience texture. This wasn't just an art class, but this was giving them tools for emotional regulation and expression. For my students who long to rediscover their creative play or need to rewrite a narrative of I'm not good at art, I bring them to the gel plate, which is this thing up here, in case you're wondering. It's a squishy printmaking process that opens up a vast world of textures, layers, mark making, painting, collage. There's a lot of touch involved in the process. It's incredibly sensory. And so I find that my students will end up falling into this state of flow because it's a chance for their body and their soul to finally catch up for a moment. Another technique I bring in for students who are rediscovering play is encaustics. It's also great if you have some serious rage to work out because you work with hot wax and you have to set that hot wax with heat, which is often a blowtorch. This is my friend Jan, who is 72 and enjoying the hell out of her body right now. There's a lot of process to it, and you create these incredibly textured and almost sculptural pieces that help you to relax your need for control and perfection. And sometimes it's just one of those spaces you can get endlessly lost in just blissful possibility. I also invite people over when you sometimes just need to literally set something on fire, which is also very therapeutic. And mostly during the pandemic, I used to host these lunch sessions where we would get together and breathe a little creative life into their day. We would do these small exercises that would focus on mark making to just still our minds, enjoy the pleasure of pen to paper, learning to make a mess, and outrunning our inner critics. We'd often laugh about how often our pets would be drawn to creative energy. So as part of today's talk, we are actually going to do a little play together. So at check-in, you should have received a card, and if you don't have something to write with, we have extra pens. So if you need a card and a pen, please raise your hand. We good? All right. And I'm going to, switch inputs real quick so I can demonstrate and participate along with you. And Riley, can I actually have a card as well? I forgot to grab one myself.
Here you go.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna swap to, nope. So when we think about mark making, oh, thank you. Great, and I'm gonna, thank you for your patience. How many of you are terrified that I'm asking you to draw in a room full of strangers right now? It's okay, it'll be fun. I do have a couple of ground rules to help you set up. All right, I'm gonna give you the ground rules and then finish setting up. First ground rule for this is you can only do this right. You can only do this right. I'm inviting you to play, and there are gonna be moments where you're gonna struggle to get out of your head, and when that happens, move to your non-dominant hand, because I want you to make a mess out of this. And your job is to get curious about this, to observe and note what comes up for you, because stuff is gonna come up, and that's okay. But your job is not to solve it. Today is not the time to explore it. Your job is just to note that it's there, it wants to be seen. Take it to your therapist later. You got time for that. Some of you are gonna have great sessions next week. This is a cry positive space. If your body is asking you to release, take time to honor it. We're gonna do it together. And stay with the visual. I'm going to give you several verbal prompts, but this isn't a writing exercise. This is something to help you bridge that verbal visual gap. Connect with abstract expression. So it's gonna stretch your imagination a little bit, but that stretch is gonna create a little bit more space for your mind and body to connect. So this is a mark-making exercise just to help you become a little bit more aware. So you've got your cards and you've got your pens. We're going to do some collaborative art. So I'm going to give you a couple of instructions, and let's see if I can figure out where I'm at. Here we go. We're going to do this in the midst of my forged pigments and encaustic pieces if you'd like to come see. So we are going to be doing this collaboratively. We are going to start, pen on paper. I want you to start by making big moves across the card. And the goal is to go off the page, make as many curling, sharp, just follow whatever your body wants to do. There is wisdom in how your body wants to move, and this is your time just to honor that. So I want you to start by thinking about the question that's on your name tag, which is, I believe, what pattern are you most proud of? So we're going to think about that for a second, and I'm going to demonstrate on here as well. So big movements and scribble. Go off the page. And if you're feeling in your head, swap hands. Tell that inner critic to go take a hike. All right. Now I want you to pass your card to somebody else. You're going to end up with something completely different. So this is a little vulnerable, and I'm here to Diana, I'll swap with you. All right. You're going to end up with a completely different piece at the end. So this is your permission to get real messy. So you're going to respond in, pick one of the open sections. It could be anyone in here. And I want you, again, trust the wisdom of your body to move as it needs, but choose one of those sections to doodle, to scribble, to make a pattern, whatever comes to you first. When I ask you the question, what are the patterns of your life that have led to sorrow? And just take some time. And again, it's not writing. Whatever your body wants to do first is okay. this on. Let's shift again. It can go any direction. Here, yeah. Oh, that's here. Lee, let me. She said yours. So now we're going to still ask a couple hard questions. We'll get to some nice ones in a little bit. We're just going to go there first. So the next question is, what patterns help you and prevent you from feeling your fullest joy? What patterns prevent you and support you in feeling your fullest joy? When you're done, you can pass to somebody else. All right, what are the good patterns in your life? What are the patterns that are bringing goodness to your life that need a little bit more nourishment or reconnection? What are the patterns of goodness in your life that are asking for a little bit more nourishment or reconnection? when you're ready, you can pass again. It gets a little bit easier every time, doesn't it? All right, so here's your next question. Where do you crave more connection? Where do you crave more connection? And again, just note, you don't have to explore. Whatever comes up for you first is right, is good enough. And when you're ready, pass one more time, and we have 2 more questions, and then we'll close. All right, our penultimate question is a tricky one again. Who are you afraid to ask for help from? And who are you afraid to give it to? Who are you afraid to ask for help from? Who are you afraid to give it to? when you're ready, we'll pass one last time. All right, final question of our little art exercise together. What do you hope for? What do you hope for? And when you're ready, look up. Straight out. So congratulations. You now have a very unique piece of art, which I would consider this art. This is a collective experience. So when you hold it, you are holding the people of this room's experiences in your hands. That is a very honored thing to be able to do. So hopefully this reminds you a little bit of that you belong, and that you belong to other people, to one another. Let me try saying that one more time. This is something to remind you that you belong, and you belong to one another. So because we processed a lot of emotions, we're going to take just a deep breath to each other, or with each other. So breathe in and out. We're just going to take a moment to integrate this experience back into our bodies. And then if I could have someone, if John's around, I would love a picture with everyone holding up their piece before we jump into Q&A. Thank you so much for playing along with me. Thank you for trusting me to lead you into uncomfortable spaces.